Yeah, Haseeb, thank you for joining the podcast. I know you're going on a big trip around the world here, so appreciate you hopping on here before you get on a plane.
Good to see you, Ben.
Good to see you. So Haseeb, I always like to start with your background. I know we met a couple years ago as you're moving with your current company, Rafay Systems, and working with customers on new AI initiatives with Kubernetes. But let's rewind it a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about where you started, what got you into tech, and then then we'll get into what you're doing today.
Oh, it's all the way back. What got me into tech is a fluke. I've talked about this before. When I was in high school, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but when I was in high school, I was going to be an accountant. Nothing to do with tech. And so in high school, or at some point in school, I'd skipped a year. So I was allowed to take a year off, basically. I took a year off after high school. And in that time, I did a bunch of different things. I worked at the local school, taught physics, and I had some friends who were selling cars, and I hung out with them. And I had some people who I knew who hung out at the stock exchange and sold stuff, so I hung out there. In that, I recognized that, yeah, man, accounting is not for me. Medicine's not for me. So what's left? And a bunch of these guys were applying to engineering school. I'm like, okay, I guess we should do that. So I took the SAT and turned out okay. So I applied to the US. And somebody accepted, and I showed up. It's lots of very, very pleasant coincidences worked out. Lots of nice things happened, and I ended up at USC for undergrad.
Nice. So where were you before USC? You came to USC
Pakistan.
From
Yeah, I grew up in Pakistan. Moved there when I was 17. Went to undergrad at USC. Then went to work for a while. Went to Cal for grad school. Always worked at startups. So actually, while I was in college, I've told the story before that I got an internship at two large companies, switching networking companies that were really hot at the time. Didn't enjoy it. Big companies, they give you small, menial tasks. That was not fun. And this grad student I knew, he said, there's this thing called startups. They would never have enough people, and they actually have fun work to do. And I ended up applying to a startup in Torrance, California, who was writing Java code for, now with hindsight, I know, shopping carts for web apps. No idea what a shopping cart is, no idea what a web app is, but they were paying $25 an hour. All right, let's go do this. And that was the first time I applied to a startup. And actually, after that was 99, summer 99. I've never applied for a full-time job in a large company. Never. Only worked in large companies through some path, some acquisition, something, but never applied for a job.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. I think kind of getting absorbed and being a part of a big company. The biggest company I was ever part of, I think, was like 700 people, and that was way too big for me. I was just right out of school too. I had studied biology. I wanted to possibly get an MBA, which it sounds like you ended up doing. I didn't end up going down that route. I went the hard and fast entrepreneur route. I had a very, very specific task, very set, job role, job description. And like after a couple of years of that, I'm like, I need to have more flexibility. So I had a lot of friends in tech at the time in San Francisco. I was lucky enough to grow up in the Bay Area. And so just being there, being exposed to that, growing up, exposed to it out of school, you just see, it's very clear, either go down that route or you go down the other route. Or you go into some other industry. But totally 100% agree with you there. I think being able to, if you're curious and you're interested and you want to try new things, sometimes big companies can be great, but a lot of times you gotta find the chaos in the startup and enjoy that kind of path. So tell us a little bit about kind of when you founded your first company. What was that company? What was that idea? What were you trying to achieve, and what was the outcome of that one?
I think I should qualify it for the first one that ended up being an actual company, or the first one we attempted and then we had no idea what we were doing.
Let's start with the beginning.
What was that? We were trying to figure out how to do backups on laptops for consumers. And at the time, there were companies like Carbonite, and VC bought. We're focused on doing this. And I remember I talked to many VCs about this. I was in my early 20s probably. Saying, look, this is going to happen. People are buying laptops now, right? So they have all this data. It's actually pretty unsafe. This needs to go somewhere. Putting servers in the house, that's for people in the Bay Area. Most people don't do this, right? I mean, you're going to have this is pre-Google Photos or whatever. So you're going to have your pictures on there. You need to save this somewhere. It's going to go somewhere in the server. And people didn't use the word cloud at the time. I think it was Dropbox kind of concept. And at least in that process, thought through a gap, right? Trying to find the gap. That exercise made it really interesting for me to understand how to find gaps, right? So that was an interesting idea. And look, I mean, at that time, I was in H1, starting a company when you're in H1 in this country. Then, for 15 years ago, 20 years ago, not that easy. Now it's significantly easier. There's many methods for that, many incubators that will help you, but at least being able to get to a point of clarity as to, look, I mean, if you're going to work on something, that has to be a clear gap. It has to be explainable. You have to be think through, like, what is the opportunity size? People call it, TAM, SAM, whatever you want to call it. That was a very interesting exercise. In fact, there was another one that I think way back when I spent time with another colleague of mine thinking about how, wow, we have all these cables in our house for speakers, man. What if there were no cables? So how would that work? And at the time, there was this thing called Bluetooth that had just was becoming a thing. Like, maybe this could be used. Okay, so then if you do that, how do you synchronize the audio across all these speakers? So I started thinking about that, and we ended up writing some device driver code just to play with it. Like, how do you actually send audio from one source to end receivers or end speakers, but you have to synchronize so that it sounds good, right? Otherwise, it's going to be all over the place. So fun problem. Of course, now that's a thing also, right? Nobody wants cables. Who wants cables? So that was really interesting. And as I think back to those experiences, I think everybody starts somewhere. Your first amazing idea is not going to be the thing, and it's okay. For many, it is. For most, it's just a thought exercise. But this is how you train, right? You train your brain to think about, is this a good idea? Is this a big idea? Is it a defensible idea, right? Is it a hard enough concept that not everybody's going to copy? All of those things you kind of go through. And yeah, neither of them. I picked two of my friends. I've had many such crazy ideas. All of us have. Right? That's how it is. But I picked those two because I think about those ideas a lot. Because both of them became things. Now, I'm not saying, oh man, I wish I'd done it and somebody still. No. I'm just saying all people who go through this thought exercise, because we all have the same information.
Yep.
We all end up thinking about the same things. Some take the step, most don't. That's okay. That's just how the industry works. But it's a muscle, right? It's not magic. You do it enough times and you start seeing patterns, right? So yeah, when you start seeing patterns, then this becomes just second nature.
Yeah, now you've seen, I think, the pattern multiple times across current companies that you partner with, other companies you invest in. So want to talk a little bit about, Rafay. Where did that one start? What do you, how did that one kind of evolve, and where are you now as Kubernetes is kind of taken off here?
So this company is fascinating because we started with a thesis that, as I think back, and I was telling this story to the CRO for a large company actually on Monday, that we started with a thesis and we sort of parked that thesis for a while because the thesis seemed too far out, and we kind of worked on some things. So although Rafay in our industry is known as a company that's is in the Kubernetes space in general, the interesting thing is when we started, we were not thinking about Kubernetes, actually. We were thinking about self-service consumption of compute. How do we make it easier for developers to consume compute? Simple. Because the premise was that it's actually pretty hard. If you want a dev test bed, I just need a test bed. I just wrote some code. I want to test my code with the rest of the app that is being built by my company. How do I do it, right? How do I set up an environment? How do I spin up all the databases I need? It's an interesting problem. It's a pretty hard problem to solve, actually, for most companies. There are people in companies, that's all they do. There are DevOps people, that's their job. And although everybody argues that it's quote unquote automated, no, most people, no, it's not. In fact, 7 years ago, it was definitely not. Today, it's not that great, actually, in most companies. But when we started, the first year, there was a substrate coming around called Kubernetes that everybody was using. So I'm like, okay, all right, we should build something on top of Kubernetes if Kubernetes will become the majority substrate for everybody. So we started building on top of Kubernetes. So we were actually never a Kubernetes company. Kubernetes was the thing that happened to be there. And then we started investing and we started getting known as a Kubernetes company. It's okay. These are things that work out. But as the sort of the AI imperative, the sovereign imperative specifically, became a thing over the last year, the fact that the infrastructure now is so expensive, if people have to wait an inordinate amount of time to consume it, or if they cannot consume it because it's too complicated and they'd rather just use it in the cloud, that gave us our second wind. So although the Kubernetes management business, it's fine, it's running, it's great, we were growing that business, compared to this stuff, man, that's boring now, right? Again, that's doing okay, but here, somebody bought 30, 40, 100 million, in some cases, hundreds of millions worth of GPUs, and they're trying to monetize their investment, or they're trying to get to high utilization with the infrastructure they've purchased. And if we tell them that if you just use the software, which is a very, very small percentage of the hardware, you will actually get consumption? No. The attach is so obvious, right? And all the things we've been working on for the last 6+ years, they apply here, right? So were we building this company for this use case? Of course not. We did not know this would happen. But the original thesis, which is if you make consumption easy, people will come. And it became a field of dreams.
So why we'll get back to the AI thing, because I think there's plenty to talk about there. But why has this problem not been solved? To your comment earlier, this problem has been around for a long time. Everyone talks about it. There's been markets that have come and gone. Cloud, I guess, is now the answer. Like just spin it up and get it going, and clearly it's not easy enough. So why has this problem not been solved? Is it too complicated? Does it require too much process? What's the kind of challenge that enterprises have with this?
I think that some of these ideas are sort of me spent time thinking about the specific problems, so they may come at it from a different perspective. But when we talk about what is the value of the cloud, I think it's not about money. The cloud is not cheap. It's consistently more expensive. It's about lack of talent in IT, and it's about ease of use for developers. Because it is actually quite easy to go to Amazon and press a button and get compute. And the reason why we went there in the first place is because we couldn't do that in our data centers. So few companies with essentially unlimited capital were able to hire tens and tens of thousands of people to build the most incredible set of automation for everybody. Amazon, Google, Microsoft with Azure, Alibaba, Oracle Cloud. 5, 6 of them, not 1,000 of them, not 10,000 of them. And because their moat is really, it's what is it, time and money, right? Because automation, at the end of the day, it's really complex. It's a function of time and money. And of course, you have the right people, right, who can do this, right? So then the question becomes, what does it take for the next company to become an Amazon? Or maybe not the whole of Amazon, for a specific use case, the Amazon of that use case. And the current use case is AI, right? So I just need a model as a service endpoint. Simple. I just need an endpoint where I can consume DeepSeek, but in my data center, because I already have the GPUs. What does it take? It's really hard, because you have to think about the same level of automation that Amazon has done for Bedrock. But Bedrock, the app, sits on 15+ years of IP in automation. And that's how Bedrock is delivered. How are you going to emulate? We do that for our customers. See, when we talked earlier about like what are the what is the framework to decide whether it's an idea is a good idea, right? Is it a big market? Is it hard, right? Do you have actual natural moats in here? Do you have competitive advantage that others do not? All of those things happen to apply to our stack when we apply it to this problem, which is, and I'm using this as a use case. There are many similar use cases in the AI space. I just want to consume. I like OpenAI. It's very nice, great, amazing, actually. I want it here. I want my own, my data, my everything, right? And that sovereign AI imperative is the second one for us, because now people don't have a choice. Like I'm spending time with, CEOs of data center companies from, like this morning, South Africa. I can travel all over the place because these are people spending literally tens and hundreds of millions of dollars with our friends at NVIDIA, trying to essentially force a new energy to come about in their regions, right, in their countries or wherever they are. But they don't have the same stack that Amazon has, so they could build it. I mean, Amazon's not going to give it to them, right? They're never going to sell that IP. So what are the choices? You can build it or you can buy it. Well, if you build it, that's a 5 to 10 year journey. Won't happen in 6 months. Won't happen in a year. Doesn't matter. Anybody who says they can do it themselves, it's just a bunch of Terraform. They don't know what they're talking about. Or you buy it, right? And we happen to be at the right place at the right time with an incredible stack that essentially enables CSP-like experiences for your developers.
So I totally get your comment about lack of talent and the challenge with building the next Amazon. To your point, this is where a lot of customers run into problems, right? When they're trying to build anything DIY, it's a challenge, right? It is a challenge on both lack of talent and time, and I guess money, but really it's time and lack of talent. How did you hire the right people? How did you think about hiring the types of developers that you have? How did you build a culture around what you were doing and keep the team excited about it? Because to your point, a lot of these problems are not simple, right?
Yeah. It's a lot of this definitely has to do with higher powers, lots of things for sure, right? You get the right people around you that can do crazy things, right? But those kinds of crazy people attract more crazy people, right? That's how it is, right?
That's right.
They want to hang out with each other. Like 2 nights ago, I was doing at least I attempt to do this as often as I can, which is not that often. Spend time with some of our colleagues who are directly engaged with customers. And the funny thing is, on that call, so I said colleagues who are directly engaged with customers. The percentage of guys on the call who actually write code for a platform on a daily basis was north of 50%. So we have team leads who we've known for many years, who've known us for many years, right? Who have day jobs, okay? But because we are growing fast enough in terms of just sort of sales, right? We don't even have the time to bring on people fast enough and then hire them and then train them. And amazing. We can't do that, right? So like in India, as an example, we were talking about this last night internally. We have been unable to hire a solution architect that the team will accept for 5 months. We had one guy join. He joined. A week later, he said, "I don't want to do this job." He left. It's just crazy stuff. It's crazy times, crazy stuff. One of our product managers in India, every time I tell him, "Hey man, I have a customer in the region. I need your help. Cover them." This guy becomes the CS guy for the customer. He's got it. I don't have to think about this anymore, right? He's spending time with like these 2 specific accounts in Dubai, and he's calling them on a regular basis, and he's making sure that I don't have to think about it anymore. He's one of the crazy guys, right? So we found these people. They've been here a while. Actually, many of them have been here across more than one company. The reason why they stay is because, of course, they get paid, right? And of course, we're a startup. We can't pay public company salaries, but we pay well. Not bad. But they have growth in their careers. They see amazing things. They learn a lot, right? And the PM that I mentioned, he joined us as a QA engineer, and then he became something. And now he's got I wonder if even some of our customers know that he's one of the product managers, right? He's doing so many things. So look, at some point, everybody leaves, everybody goes on to the next thing, right? And it always, sucks for us that strong people leave, but at some point people leave. Were he to go elsewhere, and I hope he listens to this and does not take this as direction, and look for the next job, he can do anything. He can absolutely do anything. He can run a product organization. He can run a pre-sales organization. For not a small company, he can do this for a very large company, right? He's got the talent to be a field CTO, right? He's got so many things he's learned now that are all going to pay for the time he's put in this company and more. In fact, when we interview people, I coach my colleagues to do this also. I tell everybody, and I ask this question as well: why do you want this job? This is a crazy life. You're not going to get paid well. You're not going to sleep much. Nobody's going to be happy with you because there's no time sometimes to even tell you, hey, that was a good job. We go to the next problem, right? This problem solved, go to the next problem. Why would you want to do this, man? I'm going to call you 2 a.m. And when people say things like, well, I've never worked at a startup, I want to do that. And I tell them, that's great, but not this one. That's not a competitive reason. Right? I work at Cisco, but I work really hard right now. There are many times I do 9 p.m. calls. Yeah, not this one. And I'm not being mean about it. It's more, look, there has to be something crazy about you. And usually that thing is that in some of my colleagues' cases, right, I'm stuck in my career. I'm stuck at the same role for a while. I want to go up. And I don't see another way. Okay, that guy's going to put in the time. He's going to put in the time. Or I'm in my mid-20s, so we have a lot of those. I'm in my mid-20s. I work at a company in India and the US, and I work on these effectively menial things. This is just boring. And I ask them to explain, what does boring mean? If they give me clarity on the fact that they want to own some big part of the stack, they're going to do anything to make it happen. Right? We look for that craziness, right? And so far, it's been pretty consistently positive. It works. But yeah, people who say, I've just never worked at a startup. I've had people say this. I'm sure you've heard this, right? I've lived in the Bay Area forever. I've never done a startup. Okay, that's great. I can't take that risk.
Yep. Yeah. I like your comment about craziness. I think sometimes when you look people in the eye, you can actually see it too. But sometimes you do have to ask them the question. What? How would you define crazy? I think is a good interview question, right? At a job. So compared to what you're currently doing, and I like that. So let's talk a little bit about AI. I talked to a lot of CEOs. Talked to a couple executives yesterday about it. This thing kind of came out of nowhere. Where did you start to get involved with AI? Have you been involved with it for a while? In previous companies, I'm sure you've kind of leveraged AI in different ways. What did you see kind of coming here? Where do you see this going? And where is Rafay playing a role to help enable, right, this whole ecosystem? Because it is growing at a ridiculous rate. There's new things popping up every day. There's a lot of complexity. Where is Rafay playing a role here, and where is the craziness in the company gonna bring Rafay in this whole journey?
Next week, Wednesday, in Paris, I'll be doing a presentation with somebody I didn't know 2.5 months ago. 2.5 months ago. So the gentleman's name is Craig Tavares. He is the chief operating officer for a company called Buzz HPC in Canada. So he's going to do a keynote at Raise AI about Buzz's footprint in Canada as well as in Europe. And then he and I are going to do a separate joint presentation talking about how we sort of work together to build his stack, which is, if I may say so, a very differentiated stack compared to other GPU clouds in his region. I met Craig late March of this year, by the way. He and I shook hands April 30th. We started implementing our solution, and it's live. That's fast.
Mhm.
5-6 weeks, we were okay, shake hands. I think a week later we did a kickoff, and now we have people working together to deploy things. And now we're talking about it publicly next week, and you can try it. You can log in, you can just use it. Why does he care? He cares because him and others around him, his board, his leader, they have made massive investments in GPUs. Massive. I'll let him present this next week as to how massive. It's actually amazingly big plans. Okay, so you have GPUs, you have power, capacity, great. Who's going to use this? Well, if you sell wholesale GPUs, the margins you make are not that interesting right now, unfortunately, because lots of people have GPUs to offer. But the public clouds make pretty good margins, actually. So if you break down the model as a service, as I'm just using that as an example, this could be many use cases, but for model as a service use cases, if you look at the hourly rate of GPU consumption, right? Depending on the model, you could pay $8, $10, more than that, $23 if it's an expensive model. But our friends who are running GPU clouds right now, NVIDIA GPUs, right? So if you're selling like H200s these days, you're gonna make maybe $2.20. And depends on the month, right? Changes. H100s are cheaper now, so they're about $2, and some people claim it's cheaper than $2. So those numbers are doing this now because new GPUs keep coming, and the developers want the next one. So if you focus your business around the GPU model, that's a race to the bottom. Everybody gets it. But if you switch that around and start thinking about selling use cases like the CSPs do, you're gonna make more money. If they're making $7 or $8, okay, maybe you don't need to do that. Can you make 4? Can you make 3? Because at 3, you're making 50% margins or more. 50% margin is not a bad business, actually, right? In the hardware space, right? It's actually a pretty good business. And that's what we're enabling. With software, we are enabling our partners, such as Buzz, to sell a differentiated product in their region at a very competitive price, so that a user who may have usually just gone to a public cloud because it's a great experience over there, now has a choice. Come here. You want a Kubernetes cluster, going back to Kubernetes, right? With a single GPU, so they're small, not like 32 or 100, like CoreWeave, right? CoreWeave doesn't sell you a single GPU use case. Can't do it today. In fact, on another call, I can tell you my perspective on why I believe CoreWeave is not a cloud, but that's an incendiary conversation, and I'll set that for another day. But yeah, man, there's all these use cases. I just want an ML workbench. I just want to build a chatbot. How do you build these discrete use cases and provide them in a single click? And there's a billing API, so I can send them a bill at the end. If you can build that control plane, if you will, right? Internally, we call it the CSP operating system. If you can build that and make that available, what you just did is you armed 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 organizations to be able to compete with the CSPs. And what is the benefit of that? The benefit of that is you basically balance out the entire industry, and you bring costs down for the developer. And if you bring costs down for the developer across the world, there'll be more developers who are building these AI applications. Good for everybody, right? We want this. We want ease of consumption. We want ease of use, right? And we want the democratization of these use cases. Can't look. Of course, we're all Americans. Of course, the majority of the CSP companies are in the US. But look, the world is better off when everybody can do this, right? And of course, everybody's using NVIDIA chips, which is an American company, so it kind of works itself out. And that's where we deliver value. That's what we do, right? And we have shown this now. Other companies like Buzz, we have, we work with more than one GPU clouds in India, in Indonesia, Singapore, Australia, in Western Europe, in the Middle East now, right? And the logo acquisition velocity is presently only hindered by the number of people we have who can talk to customers. We are as of, I don't know, a few months ago, 6 months ago, at a point where, that just add water situation, right? And, you and I have known each other for a couple of years, but I hope you found that I'll be intellectually honest with you. I'll tell you what's working and what's not, right? In the Kubernetes management market, the question I always ask myself was, okay, so if we add 10 new sellers, I can see a path to making another 12, 13 million ARR. But if I add 100 sellers, do I see a path to making 120 million? I don't know, right? I don't know what the cap is here.
Yep.
No cap, absolutely no cap. This market is crazy, right? In a good way. Again, same craziness, right, that we talked about earlier, right? And you said this, right? You can see it in people's eyes. I can see it in their eyes. And that's the best part. I'll tell you another story. Sorry. So I mentioned earlier in the conversation that I was talking to a gentleman from South Africa this morning. So I met this gentleman is a CEO of a data center company that operates on the African continent. So I met him 4 weeks ago in the Bay Area through an introduction. I met him. I told him about what we do, and he said, "I don't want slides. Let's whiteboard." We did. Asked me for my number. I gave him my number. 2 hours later, he called me. He's like, "Hey, man, what are you doing tomorrow?" In the office, blah, blah. He's like, "Man, I need 2 hours from you." Showed up, hung out for 3 hours. And then that was a Friday. Then Sunday morning, he called me, and he was in some airport. He's like, "I need to spend time with my team, but they happen to be in South Africa. It's going to be 1 a.m. for you. Can you make a call?" No problem. We don't call. Sunday, we talk again. Wednesday, we talk again. This is not like IT buyers. See, this gentleman has been given a mandate, go deploy 3,000 GPUs over the next 18 months. That's not cheap, right? Because it's not just the GPUs he buys, it's the data center upgrades. So many things are going to happen now, right? That's hundreds of millions of dollars of investments now. He's thinking about the whole stack. I see that craziness in his eyes. And if he listens to us, he'll know who he is. I see that craziness in his eyes, right? We have found customers who are equally crazy. But that's a great place to be.
That's the that's the ultimate, right? You meet yourself and your customers, and they're ready for the insanity of it. All right, I want to come back to AI, but I want to talk a little bit about like kind of this paradigm, right? Like with cloud providers, right? Like a couple of years ago, it was the big three, and then now there's second tier or other options, right? You can go to DigitalOcean or go to other providers. Akamai bought a company, right, in that space. Do you see the same thing happening with AI clouds? And do you see that that we're going to just have a proliferation of these different types of clouds with these different types of services? Again, it's crazy. You're meeting all these crazy people and you're doing crazy things, but how do you kind of see this shaking out for the kind of the service provider market, and then the end customer? To your point, the end customer is going to win, but what's that ecosystem going to look like?
So it seems like there seem to be a lot of them. Let's call them I don't know, MSPs of old, right, or data centers of old, who are deploying this infrastructure and trying to deliver this in their region as a service, right? So there seem to be a lot of them, right? It seems like, man, every country is going to have a handful of these providers, not one, right? You got to have more than one. That's the right way to think about a bet. But in addition, and this is the interesting part about this, right? Some of these large enterprises are buying their own hardware because they can afford it. They've done the math. Like if you can bear a $30-40 million capital expenditure, it's actually cheaper for you long term to do this in-house, right? And of course, you need to have the talent for data center deployments. So if you can do that, significantly cheaper for you to do this on-prem. See, we are attacks of. I'll give you a real example actually of the tax as well as the math, right? So we have a partner we're working with or a customer we're working with in Thailand. So this is a large organization. Within this very large company, there's a marketing team that expects to spend about $2 million on OpenAI over the next year, right? So every year over year, they think about it, a couple of $1 million USD that they're going to spend. So their IT team kind of looked at, and this IT team is just incredibly sharp guys, actually quite amazing. I've spent time with them in Bangkok. They figured out exactly what they're doing. So they're essentially, it's a search use case for marketing, which is a very classic use case for AI these days, right? So they said, okay, what if we deliver to you an open source model? They chose Quen for this. We're going to give you a chatbot-like experience. We provide that infrastructure for them as well. We just want to understand how many GPUs do you need for that so that we can do a cost comparison, right? So we work with this customer. it turned out that they only needed 8 H100s, NVIDIA H100s, to basically deliver the same experience to the marketing organization using Qwen as the open source model. So the thing is, an 8 H100s is an HGX server, costs about $250,000 or somewhere in that range. One time you buy it, you're done, right? It's your server, right? We're going to end up charging them probably it's a small number, right? So I don't know, probably $3 to $4 grand a GPU, right? So let's call it, let's call it simple math, like 30, 40 grand a year per, for the 8, right?
Okay.
Okay, so over a 5-year window, that's $250,000 for the server, and let's say they pay us $150,000 or a 5-year period, right? For the 8 GPUs. So that's $400,000. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Or 5 years, what would they pay OpenAI? $10 million.
Wow.
$400,000, $10 million. Same experience.
Mm.
It's not even funny. When people start thinking about the math here, you got to find ways to do this in your region. You got to find ways to do this. If you can't, do it here. Or find a regional provider who's not going to charge you the money that is being charged by these providers. Now, that doesn't mean OpenAI is doing something bad. Hey, look, man, they are the first to market. Why would they not make money? If I were them, I'd be charging more money. Why not? But now we are at a point where this market is maturing. When there are 10 million different people trying to do this, or 100 million people trying to do this, people will look for that price variability, optionality of consumption models. And that's what we are trying to monetize. And I think we've, by the grace of God, ended up in a very, very good position as a company.
That's awesome.
Ben, I can give you so many such examples, man. That's the fun. I can give you 100 use cases like that. Where I hear the story, I'm like, oh my God, like you should be doing this in your data center.
Yep. Yeah, I think we kind of saw this with cloud. I think a lot of people have learned their lesson with cloud. I think it'll be interesting to see how fast they learn their lesson with AI. Like part of it is like your point, like lack of talent. You just have to go to the closest, fastest way to get this going. But once you actually start to think about how is this thing going to scale, what are the more complex use cases I'm going to use, it gets more complicated, right? So that was going to be my kind of last question here, and then we'll wrap it up. What are some of the use cases that you're seeing that are really interesting and unique that excite you? A lot of customers. I was talking to a chief data officer of a large financial institution yesterday, and he was saying, we're starting with the stuff that we know that we can evolve, right? Like we're starting with a chatbot to make our chatbot better, and we've made better customer experiences. We dropped the call center call from like 10 minutes of a customer being pissed off to 30 seconds, right? And that's a huge gain, right? But that's an evolutionary thing. It's not a revolutionary thing. So, I mean, maybe you could argue it's revolutionary for the customer. Maybe they might say that. But
if you're the guy waiting on the call, it's revolutionary, man.
Yeah, exactly. But what are some of the new use cases you're seeing? You also are exposed to so many different parts of the world, and kind of what's happening in those parts of the world. So I'd love to hear anything that you can talk about that's not super secret.
No, I'll give you an example that's top of mind for me right now. So we have a partner in Indonesia who is working with Accenture, this public use case. Accenture, we actually, as a company, also now have a teaming agreement in place with Accenture, which is a really big deal, as I found after the fact. They've been amazing partners to us, Accenture. It's a very early relationship, but very happy that we are working with them on all these sovereign AI use cases. Together with Accenture, our partner, they invested in the building of an agentic application that reduces the amount of time a mortgage intake officer takes to process an application. There's a government mandate to increase the number of people in Indonesia who own homes. It's a good thing for the economy, right? If more people own homes, it's naturally a very good thing. So the government is encouraging that, driving banks to give out more loans, follow the American model, basically, right? I mean, it's such a positive thing. But there's not enough people who can process these loans now or release the applications. So they built an agent for that. And when I heard that use case, I was like, oh man, what would have taken it for me to figure that out? If I were building a company for I'm going to sell to banks and specifically focus on mortgage apps, and here's how I increase the bandwidth of the people who already exist in these companies. So instead of processing one application every week, now they can do 5 or 6 a day.
Mhm.
That's how it is. Right? Amazing,
Mhm.
right? These are lecturing use cases, right? And it's not, nobody's losing a job. There's so much work to do, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's no worries in that, at least in that market, as far as I know. Oh wow, there's not enough jobs, and what's going to happen to my job next year? I think it's just amazing that when you have access to the right tooling for experimentation, if you have easy access for that model and bot framework to access your data, and then you have the right mindset around, well, again, experimentation, people are building amazing things.
Mhm.
We're just plumbers, so we help, right? We're just kind of helping them connect pipes in one sense, right? But without free water flowing, it's really hard to do anything. Can't take a shower.
Mhm. Well, I think I like your point. Yeah, you talked a little bit about like democratizing, AI, and that's another good way of democratizing access to AI, but also like the challenge with AI is just the low hanging fruit, like low hanging fruit things that we do not have enough people for, enough talent for. That is the stuff that is just getting raked underneath the just kind of swept off the street, right? And I think that's the thing that we need to spend a lot of time on right now. I think there's certainly things that we can do to enable businesses and really expand employees' productivity and things, but that is the low hanging fruit. I'm sure you have a number of roles in your company. I have a number of roles in automations that I would love to build. We are building those, right? And I think that's where every company needs to think about starting, because that is the biggest impact to the business. I think that's kind of the idea around Gen AI, but I think specifically around agentic, that is a huge opportunity. So, all right, well, Haseeb, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining the podcast. Great to hear your perspective. It's been great to watch the company evolve, and I think everyone is enjoying the tailwinds of AI. And it sounds like you guys are on the top of the roller coaster, continuing to go up the climb. And it sounds like getting pushed by your crazy customers. So congrats.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Great. I really enjoyed this conversation, man. Let's do this again soon.
Okay, sounds good. Haseeb. Talk to you soon.